This is the last episode of season 1. Are we quitting or are we going to do a season 2?
Stay tuned to find out. Or not.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Horses with Horns. My name is Nicholas.
And I'm Indranil.
And this is going to be the last episode of season 1, episode 12. 12 weeks, 3 months. People say there's magic in doing things for 90 days, right?
I feel like it's a bit more because we also unintentionally took the last month off.
Yeah, there was a little bit of sickness, a little bit of traveling, but...
He was running an AI conference.
I did. Yeah, maybe we can talk about that in season 2. But yeah, so we were busy. And yeah, so we figured it would be a really good idea to discuss the topic of, anything that starts most likely at some point ends. So it is the topic of quitting, right? Which is a really strong word to use, but yeah, the topic of, you decided to start a business and it's going in a particular way. There's a lot of difficult times and there's a lot of times where you need to be flexible to change and you become used to reacting and changing things and trying again and trying again and trying again. And then of course there's always the thought of, maybe it's not for me or maybe not this time around. Like, right. How do you address that question, and if you come to the conclusion that yes, it's time to end this idea, this experiment, this journey, how do you kind of properly manage the end of it, and also how do you probably do the most difficult thing, which is how do you deal with the feelings of having to go through that. So how would one differentiate between, okay, this is time to quit, it's time to end this, or this is time to try something different? What do you think?
I think it's a really good question because it's also maybe one in the same. Like, what does it actually even mean to quit? In the sense that if you're trying something different, depending on the degree of how different it is, you did kind of quit the first thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, does it matter?
Right. I think that, the mistake that we sometimes in our lives in general we make is that we associate the actions that we take as a very, like a very isolated version or a segment of our lives, right? So if you start a company and it doesn't work out, then you quit. I think it's not productive to look at our life separate in those verticals. I think it makes more sense to say, this is my one life, right? And I hate using this term, but it's the journey, right? Like every day you are living your only life, right? So it's not quitting if you wake up the next day, so you didn't quit because the only thing you have, I guess, maybe this is going to sound too philosophical, but the only thing that you're really running while you're on earth is your life. Mm-hmm. It may seem like you're running your family. It may seem like you're running your business. It may seem like you're trying this or trying the other, but all you're doing is kind of waking up and going to sleep and doing that on repeat. So really what you're managing is your life.
Yeah. I think to try and get back to like really answering the question of, is it time to quit or is it time to try something else? Still a little philosophical here, but I think one of them is just enjoyment. You're right. The main thing that you have to live every day is your life, mm-hmm. and you might as well enjoy it. So if the thing that you're running, even if it's going well, isn't making you happy, then at the least maybe it's time for you to move on from it. Like maybe the business doesn't fail. Maybe it's time to give it to someone else, but maybe you shouldn't do it. And then I think even more concretely, I think there are probably some metrics where, we've talked about this the last few episodes. Mm-hmm. fundraising metrics like zero cash state. If you're out of money, no one's giving you more money, you aren't making enough revenue to cover your bills, yeah, you probably have to quit, or at the least, before you get to that point, that's when you know that you have to try something radically different.
Yeah, from experience, I think it's also it's very irrational, for lack of a better word, in the beginning, where you just try things and there's a lot of emotion and you feel very sure that certain things are going to work out. So once that kind of goes away, it's you're going to try to find strength and keep trying different things and sticking to something and trying to make something work. But I think at some point when you're getting close to quitting, I think at some point you're gonna have to say, okay, create some kind of timeline for yourself, or like, hey, I'm gonna try this one thing, and if it doesn't work, that's it, right? Because if you don't create some kind of event that will force you, for a little bit of word, force you to quit, you might keep doing it with the wrong attitude and really just trying things just because you don't want to quit, right? And like I said, quitting is really a really strong word to use. Let's say that we decided to quit this podcast for whatever reason, like, it's that is that a failure? Is that bad? Is that wrong? No, none of that. So I think you need to kind of evaluate it as it's just a decision. It's not more meaningful or less meaningful than changing the name of the podcast. It's just another decision.
Yeah, I'm going to double down on the enjoyment piece. I think I probably just realized this while thinking about it. It is that business fundamentals are probably pivot points. Like if something is shifted in the market, or as you're doing your testing, you find that whatever you're working on just isn't getting traction, that's a pivot point. Why you would quit entirely could be because you've run out of pivots and you just don't have any more ideas and now you're out of money or whatever. But I think more critically, it's that you just don't want to do it anymore. If you're not getting enjoyment, even if there are maybe more pivots you can explore, if you just don't want to do it, you don't have to.
Yeah, and I also think you have to, because it's very normal, I think, for things not to work out on the first attempt.
Yeah, and most things don't.
Right, and I do believe that, being an entrepreneur is more about a lifestyle than the business itself. I think you have to get comfortable with, the idea that it could fail, and you may need to try something very radical. Now, on the opposite side of it, I've interacted with people that when they shared their success as entrepreneurs, a lot of them say it's the ability to pivot consistently, right? So I think the more you pivot, the more I think you'll increase your chances of success when you're able to react and, connecting with the last episode, become really data driven, right? And have evidence to react to create a certain change. And then you'll also feel more confident that you've tried everything you could have, that you looked in every direction. So it'll give you a higher sense of closure, I think, if you consistently pivot, because you tried just about everything you could have.
Yeah, and sometimes it works out extremely well, right? Like Slack was created as an in-video game messenger. Not even close to what it is now.
Right.
And so many companies, I'm sure I can think of more examples, but, a lot of things got to where they are because of extremely hard pivots.
Yeah, I think that is crucial, right? But that is a happy story where they pivoted and that brought
it
them
works.
to success.
Yeah.
Right. Many pivots are not going to be like that. Right.
Yeah.
But I think it'll give you the sense of trying. You looked everywhere. You looked all around, and that's all you could do. Right now, if you, let's say, if having a business or figuring out a business is the only possible way that you'll ever gonna make money, then you don't have even the opportunity to quit. Right? All you have to do is keep trying. But if that's not your reality, then it's okay to take a break. And I think it's also, when you are running your own business, you also miss on the opportunity to see how it works at another business where things might be going better. So if you can become an employee for another business, you can learn stuff. You can learn stuff that you can try again at some other moment. But I think it's important to be okay with that. And I think a person's okay with things when they are able to say them out loud to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you are comfortable saying, okay, I quit this company, and you're comfortable telling everyone that you told about the company before, oh, by the way, yeah, that's not me anymore. I had to give that up. When you do that, then you probably done it right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, which, I don't know, we can talk about the emotional aspect of failure, which, you know, I'd really like to say it's not a failure. I think if you've even tried something, you've done more than most.
Right.
But yeah, so 12 plus weeks ago when we talked about the highs of starting something where you're excited about the idea, you're telling everybody, you're getting their feedback, and now you're having the conversation of, hey, it didn't work. I couldn't figure it out, or, you know, I've hit a point where I've just tried and I don't want to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do you navigate that?
I once talked to someone on LinkedIn, and she said, she was saying like, oh yeah, I had a business for a very brief time, 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
She laughed about it, and then she told me some of the things that she did wrong. But she laughed about it. And I was super surprised. Like, she thought it was funny that she tried to have a business and that it didn't work. So yeah, I think, I mean, finding humor in it is always a good thing. But I also think that the feeling of failing is very present, right? And that's not going to go away just because. But I think the only way to kind of erase that a little bit is to change your goals, right? If your goal was to start a company, then you failed this time around. It's true. You were not successful, at least. And the way that you know that you were not successful is because you decided to quit. So no matter what you do now, that's it, right? But you're taking a break, and you're gonna figure out whatever you need to do next. It's much more about, I think, living, being happy with what you're doing, and also, like when I think about this podcast, right? If we decide to stop, I don't know, because we don't have the number of followers we want, or because we don't have the number of views we want, just to say a couple of things, right? When we started this podcast, right, one of our goals was to just start it.
Yeah.
Right. And so in our case, that goal works out really well. It's very friendly to stopping things.
Yeah.
But most businesses, of course, are not like that. But it's important, I think, to figure out, okay, this is an attempt at something that could not work. In fact, most of them don't work. So it's really important to, I think, to be aware of that, But then they also say that the people that are very successful are the people that, they believe in themselves beyond what normal people, the self-confidence that they have is beyond others.
Yeah. I actually think it's extremely healthy when someone can laugh about shutting down a company and like feel okay with failure. I think that actually makes you a much stronger entrepreneur, because I think if you're playing it safe, particularly if you want to be a high growth company, if you're playing it safe and you're minimizing failure risks, that can actually almost be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Like pushing the line and just getting comfortable with the idea that it may not work is probably going to be better for the times when it does work.
Now, one thing that I've stumbled upon in social media from certain influencers and from VCs as well, is when they're asked, what's the one feature that makes a founder successful? I don't know if you've seen it. But then the answer is not giving up. So
Sure.
it's right, but it's kind of crazy, right? Because that basically means keep trying forever.
Yeah.
Which maybe you'll need to find ways maybe you'll need to find ways that you can make that happen, and yeah, my good friend Abby once said, entrepreneurship is not this very direct journey, right?
No.
It's super flexible, right? And it takes time to figure it out. So, just because you need to, I don't know, get a part-time job, get a full-time job, or do whatever else, right? It doesn't mean that you're no longer an entrepreneur. And I think it doesn't mean you're no longer trying. I think you can do that not giving up, right? But being dynamic to saying, okay, at this time, I cannot keep trying at 100%. I can keep trying at 30%, for financial reasons, mental health, whatever, right? But I do see that as how I would adapt that quote of not giving up. It's like, okay, but be aware that there's going to be, you might not be able to go 100% at it always. It's not, we always picture that ladder. Next step is always higher, but it's not necessarily like that. And it's going to take time for you to figure it out. It's not easy. You're trying to figure out something that's very, very challenging.
Right. It's one of the few things where you can even watch this podcast and like look for ideas and read books and things like that, but there isn't really a playbook.
No.
It's not step by step. It's not linear, and nobody can give you the answers. Whereas, like in a job, you might have a job description. You have a set of responsibilities, but especially as a founder, not only is your own job changing with the size of the company, but no one's going to tell you what to do. No one's going to say, this is the thing that you have to do next, and that for sure is going to make your business better.
Right. Someone asked me recently, someone really young asked me, what is a founder? And so you just have to make the company work.
Yeah, I mean, that's the main job.
Yeah. And then he said, but by doing what? I don't know. If I knew, a lot of companies, people just knew what they needed to do, things would just work.
Yeah, I mean, it changes with the size. When you're small and you're one person, you're doing everything. And then later on, there are focus areas. You might be responsible only for hiring or only for sales or whatever. But yeah, you have to figure out what that is.
Yeah. So my thought when it comes to quitting, right, is if you don't enjoy it, always think about like, okay, if you were doing what you're doing now, let's say that you started a company and you're doing a set of actions and it's not successful. You're not getting the clients that you hoped you would get or whatnot. I think a good exercise that I've done with myself is, Okay, imagine you're doing your days look exactly the same, but it works.
Hmm.
But you have the clients. Okay. So you have your validation right there. Okay. Are you happy? Like, are you enjoying it? Everything's the same,
Mm-hmm.
but with success. Okay. Is that it? Is that the only thing you're missing? Results,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if the answer is no, then yeah, maybe you should stop, and then find a job and find a good way to kind of rewind and think about things and what you want to do and what it looks like, what work looks like for you next, right? But if you say, okay, I'm doing everything I'm doing right now and I have the clients and I have the success, right? I have the revenue coming in. Yeah, that's the only thing I need. Okay, then great. Then you are happy but frustrated. You just don't know you're happy because of your frustration,
Yeah.
right? But because you're happy and frustrated, then say like, okay, then you shouldn't quit,
Yeah.
So don't quit. Just find ways to keep at it. And that could mean reducing the amount of work. That could mean getting a job. That could mean anything. Anything. That could be driving for Uber. That could be doing the food delivery. That could be anything. But if the only thing you're missing is results, don't quit, because you are on the journey. You just haven't discovered. You just haven't found exactly what makes it work.
Yeah.
But you're having fun.
Yeah, and I can only speak to this from the employee perspective, but I can attest to the fact that success still has stress. Like when we were a tiny company with no money and we're trying to make sure that everybody gets paid with minimal funding, that was stressful, but at the same time, it was a lot of fun and I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm in a totally different situation where the business is doing extremely well. Have money, I have a great team, but it's a different type of stress where it's very consequential. It's like, okay, we're doing well. We need to make sure we keep doing well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like you're always going to have stressors and like different things that affect you. So I'd say that alone should not be why you quit. Like validation and success independently. I don't know. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it's almost. I think you're saying to separate the validation from the day to day.
Yeah, like as long as you're enjoying it. So like I guess to reframe what I'm saying is that I was stressed when we didn't have money and it was like a very small team and all of that, but it was fun. And that's why I stayed. And now same thing, even though those types of stresses aren't there, like we're doing very well. We have validation, but it's just a different type of stress where you want to keep it going and you feel the pressure of like, we got to make it not work, but like continue to work.
Right.
That's still there, but I'm still enjoying because it's just a different environment,
Right. So even with the results,
Yeah.
you can still experience feelings that
Yeah.
are not attached to results.
Yes, I think that's exactly
Right.
what I'm trying to say. It's the validation itself and the results. You will have feelings independent of that, both positive and negative, pretty much always.
Yeah. Yeah. And there is a. I once attended this. What do you call it? Like a Christian career coaching event by this organization called VOCA, and if I remember correctly, they presented an axis where the x-axis was fun, how much fun you're having at work, and the y-axis, man, I forget now. I can't remember what the y-axis was. So one of them was fun, and maybe the other one was purpose.
Okay.
Right. And the ideal place to be is when you take your work to where it's fun and it has purpose, right? Or I think it's fun in working for yourself or working for others. I think it might have been that in the y-axis. But basically, when you truly work for others and when you're having fun doing it, work becomes a gift.
Yeah.
You know, and it's normal to get lost in the other quadrants, right? Because sometimes work is not fun, and sometimes, while you may wish that you could solve this particular problem in the world, at this time you need to worry about revenue. So you cannot be as maybe selfless as you hope that you could be, or that brings some kind of meaning to your life. You kind of get lost in these quadrants, right? But that's my thing, right? If you're there, that doesn't mean you have to quit. And there's also real needs in life, right? So you can say like, I cannot keep trying this business because I'm running out of money. And like, okay, but find a way, even in Ray Dalio's book, Principles. So one half of the book is his principles, and the other half is kind of an autobiography almost, where he talks about the crisis, I think, in the 80s or in the 70s. I forget. You had to fire everybody.
80s, yeah.
80s, right?
I think.
Yeah.
Probably bond crisis and all that.
Yeah. So he had to fire practically everybody, but he found a way to keep things at the very minimum, much different from what they used to be. But just because things are going bad, it doesn't mean that you have to give up on them. You can find ways to make a living while still trying and observing and talking. Maybe it's not time to try to sell more. Maybe it's time to try to have more conversations, to learn something new that you didn't know before. Yeah. It's okay to change the goal, I think, of your business, especially at those early stages. It's okay to go from to say like, okay, like for the next 3 months, I'm not going to try to get a client. Like that's not my goal. My goal, because obviously what I'm doing is not working. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to try something else that's not going to work, that's going to be a waste of time. So then my goal for the next 3 months is learning something, or is talking, or is networking, or trying to network with founders that may be doing it a little better, that I can learn something from them. Like it's okay. Like your business goal could be that for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
That's sort of my observation, I think, in that kind of journey. And it was extremely fitting to have our first guest from episode 1 back on episode 12. He has a lot to say about this topic as well. Please welcome again Patrick Russo.
Hi, I'm Patrick, a data scientist turned engineer and founder. I was actually on an earlier episode of Horses with Horns, So You Want to Start a Business, where I gave more background on myself. But for now, I'll just dive in. So today we're going to talk about quitting and what it means to quit. So I'd actually like to step back a little bit and redefine a little bit what quitting means and talk about like different forms of quitting. So there's many ways to quit, different things, and we're quitting things every day. If you're building an MVP and you decide to you're testing the MVP out and not getting the traction or that you were hoping for with it, MVPs are all about testing hypotheses and testing one thing. If that doesn't work, quitting it and trying something else. Likewise, we're always evaluating the evidence we have, reevaluating kind of our expected value of different actions for the future, and then deciding, do we want to do this or do we need to do something else? And that's all that quitting is looking at kind of, does it make sense to keep going in this direction, or do I need to do something else? Whether it's an MVP that you're building, whether it's a process you're following, whether it's a job that you have, whether it's a startup you founded, you always have to be reevaluating, is this the right thing to be doing? Because frankly, there's not enough time in life to do everything you could possibly want to. So you need to step back, reflect, is this the right thing to be doing now? And I'd like to talk about a couple books that I've read and I found incredibly helpful. Grit and Quit. So Grit is a book by Angela Duckworth, talking about kind of passion and long-term perseverance. But in order to persist at something, you need to quit other things. You can't pursue everything. There's just too much that you need to do to really specialize and to become an expert in something that you can't do everything else. You can't run 10 businesses. Most people can't. So you need to really decide where you want to spend your energy, time, effort, and focus on that, making that the best business it could be, making that the best possible career for you. However you want to think about it. And Grit is a great complement to another book, Quit, by Annie Duke. And Annie, one of the things Annie says is that success doesn't lie in sticking to things, but in choosing the right things to stick to. And that's what quitting is about. It's deciding what to stick to and deciding not to stick with other things. Something that really stood out to me from the book is that a statistic from poker. So professional poker players play fewer than 25% of their hands, while amateurs play more than 50%. Professionals fold a lot. They know that it's fine to quit this round and try again next time. The cards I was dealt weren't right. I'm gonna cut my losses and try again next round, next deal, tomorrow. And you have many shots. You can try to start many different businesses. You can have many different careers. People pivot, they change, and all that quitting is a form of pivot. So about something else I really liked about the book Quit is that Annie highlighted a few different kind of businesses and how they either decided to quit or not. So an example of where someone quit is Stuart Butterfield, who co-founded a company called Tiny Speck. They were building a gaming company. They were building a game called Glitch, and they had users, they had some traction, but as Stuart kind of looked at and reflected on their trajectory, their user growth, he decided it was best to quit building Glitch and instead build a communication tool, which ended up becoming Slack. And by looking at kind of the expected value of what he was doing, okay, they have users traction, that's great. But the expected value for the future wasn't high enough to continue going down that route, that he reevaluated and decided to pivot to something totally different. He didn't let his identity get caught up in what it was he was doing before. And that's a mistake that companies frequently make. They get kind of caught up in what their identity is. People can do that too. And so the business I'd like to highlight next is Sears. So Sears we all know as a retailer, but Sears actually founded several different profitable financial arms. Allstate Insurance, Discover Card, were created by Sears. And those are both immensely valuable, and Sears sold them off in the 90s, early 2000s. And by refusing to give up their identity as a retailer, Sears ended up discarding its most profitable businesses and going through bankruptcy because it couldn't quit. And I'd like to talk a little bit about kind of my personal experiences. So I did leave a startup I co-founded. It was an incredibly hard decision. I tried to read a lot, tried to really kind of understand and reflect on where I was, try to understand where we were going, look at the kind of expected values of not just valuation, about my vision, my goals, and our company goals, and talked with a lot of other founders I knew. And one piece of advice that came back to me time and again from founders I know, as well as something that was kind of a common refrain within Annie Duke's book, was if you're unsure for a long period of time, it's probably time to quit. Founders, most people, especially founders, are optimists. They believe in their vision, they want to succeed. And if for a long period of time you are questioning that, no longer think it's possible, it might be time to pivot, whether it's MVP, business line, or shutting down the company, or leaving the company if you have co-founders. I had two amazing co-founders. They're still building the company with two amazing engineers, and I wish them every success. But for me, the decision was that I needed to leave. Difference in vision and it kind of expected value, and looking at all of that. Yeah, so I'd like to just kind of finish up by saying, like, uncertainty is scary. Quitting can sound scary, but don't be afraid of how it looks. You tried. You reflected, thought about it, and decided this was the best choice for you, and that's fine. It just gives you time to persist at something else. So good luck in your business, whether you persist, quit, or pivot and try something new. Thanks.
Patrick, thank you again for joining us. Thank you the first time. Thank you this last episode of season 1 as well. And thank you for the, reacting to this on a very short notice as well. One thing that he shared with us that I thought was really good is the idea, the empowering approach of saying you're not really quitting. You're not longer going to do something that's bad. Like, life's too short to waste it on bad things that are not going to work out, right? So it's not so much like you're quitting. It's more like you have identified that is not going to work. You need to find something else that's going to work. And that could, of course, mean leaving it completely, pivoting, or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I think that poker hand stat, first, crazy, great stat. But I think that really does go to common advice on how to build a company. It is maximizing chances for success, and let go of the things that you have pretty high degree of certainty aren't going to work.
Right.
Of course, a poker hand, very isolated, quick decision, but a startup, if you've been trying something 2-3 months and now, based on the data you've collected, high degree of certainty that it's not going to work, it's not the right direction, then at the least let that thing go and try something else.
Yeah. I think I shared this earlier, one of the first couple episodes, I think, but this is a story from two music producers. I think it was, so David Foster, producer of especially very famous songs in the 80s, Whitney Houston and people like that, was talking to Quincy Jones, much more famous due to Michael Jackson as well, right? And so Quincy is maybe a little older than David Foster, maybe 10 to 15 years, maybe a little more. But David was basically talking to him and he was saying, like, and I also produced this album right here, but that wasn't really that good. And then Quincy Jones turned it and he said, it says here produced by David Foster. And you're like, yeah, but it's not really that good. And we're like, yeah, but your name is on this thing. It has to be good. Like, if you're putting your name on something, then it has to be the very best you can do. And I'm using that analogy to kind of use it to a business, which is, if you're already feeling like you're not even giving it your best work, right? And you're trying to get a client and you're approaching it with like mediocre work and mediocre attitude, then you're tarnishing your reputation, and you're putting your name on something that you at least in the way that you act, you don't really care about it that much anymore.
Right. Not only is that thing not going to work, but now they're going to remember you as that guy who came with like a halfway there sales pitch, and the
Right.
next thing you're doing is not going to work.
Exactly. So, you know, it's fine to take breaks, and probably ways that you can prevent quitting is by not running too fast, right? Making sure that you don't burn out. But anyway, Patrick, thank you so much again for contributing, and it's been a really fun these last 12 episodes. It's been a really cool experiment. I think we talked about it for a while, and Indranil and I have known each other for many years, and it's been really fun to be on camera with all of you and just talking.
Yeah. I mean, I think we started this episode or a few ones ago saying that this was our goal of just get out there, make these, see what happens. And, we have, I think, 30 followers on LinkedIn right now. So thank you to all of you. We have a bunch of YouTube subscribers. We've successfully put out 12 episodes. Pretty good. I'll take it.
Yeah. And thank you so much for all of our network that really came in on 11 out of our 12 episodes as guests. It's really fun. And, it makes me really happy to know that there's people in my life that I can call and I can say, hey, working on this thing. Why don't you join me for a few minutes? I really appreciate all of you that dedicated a few minutes. And you don't even know how much I've learned from you. We know each other. But in the minutes that you participated with us, I've actually learned tons of knowledge from all of you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
See you soon.